Hi Scorpio, welcome to your horoscope. Today we're going to talk about certain aspects that are panning out throughout 2021 and even all the way till March of 2023. One of the key aspects that I'm going to cover in this video is what happens when Saturn transits our fourth house, our house of home, family, emotional foundations, parenthood, parents, the country of origin, our home, our emotional as well as physical home. This is a very, very critical transit, Scorpio. It happens once in 29 years, and it is a very important threshold of growth that happens for us. It is a turning point for us. We move away from one phase of our life, and in a very visible, physical way, we are moving into a very different part of our life, very different chapter of our life when this happens. This is known for if you are still with your parents or you're younger in age. Normally, this threshold marks a person leaving their comfort zone, leaving their home of origin in some ways. There's a creative separation from parents or parent or the old way of being emotionally in some ways. Eric Sullivan used to call it creative separation of parents, the pattern that we are born with and brought up in some ways that changes. So we're going to talk in detail about that, this aspect, Saturn in your house of home, family, emotional foundations will be there till March of 2023. It started around end of 2020. We saw a brief transit of it around May to June, July last year. So you have seen a little bit of preview of that in 2020, but now the full scope of it will pan out. Saturn is very lucrative in its sign that it is in right now. It's in Aquarius right now, which is it rules Aquarius. So it's a very gainful transit, but it is one of the most difficult transits of Saturn. Um, it is the most difficult transit of Saturn. But there is a purpose to it. There is an attainment at the end of it. It is defined as atonement by some of the historical astrologers. They used to call this transit as a transit of atonement because we move to the next phase of karma in our life when this happens. The second thing that is happening, and because of which 2021 would be a landmark year for you when you're one of the signs who is most influenced by these two aspects. The second aspect that I'm going to talk about is Uranus transiting your house of relationships. Uranus has been in your house of relationships since 2018 and it will stay there till 2026. Again, this is a very rare transit. Uranus transits a specific sign every 84 years. So many people don't see this transit ever in their lifetime. So there are very few zodiacs who would be seeing Uranus, the planet of change, the planet of freedom, the planet of innovation, the planet of genius, in their house of partnerships, in their house of relationships, in their house of commitment and contract. So these two, which are life-changing transits, they are happening together in 2021, and these two planets are making an interaction with each other, because of which we'll have to assimilate the combined impact of both these changes which are happening in 2021 for us. Saturn square Uranus, which is the key transit, which colors the whole of 2021, will happen 3 times during the course of 2021. I spoke about this transit last year, and I did speak about it in the February introductory video as well. This is a transit which is known for breaking the old structure of life. And the old structure of life is broken to be free. There's tremendous tension because this is the last quarter square, but that tremendous tension becomes a source of endless supply of creativity and energy for us. This is like a nuclear fission which releases enormous amount of energy and helps us break out from an old mold completely. It is almost like we cannot recognize ourselves once we have gone through a transit like that over our critical axis, which is what is happening for Scorpio. We'll be forced to harness this inner tension that we will feel into developing a purpose that permits us to participate in a larger expression, to be gainful through the experience that we are creating in this year. Let's dig in deeper. And I am a Scorpio rising, so this is a very personal transit for me. It's a personal transit for all Scorpios because Saturn in the fourth house, in our house of home, family, emotional foundation, is a very, very personal transit. It literally affects our personal life enormously. Family karma, family foundations, place of living, parents, home, family, caretaking responsibility, they come into perspective. And Saturn is about taking ownership, taking responsibility, taking more burden in some ways, taking on more karma to burn off the old karma. So we take on more responsibility, we take on more leadership, we take on more things, more objects when it comes to this area of our life. So in terms of home, family, you will feel that you're being given more responsibility. And we may not feel ready or even age appropriate sometimes for it. This is a very psychological transit though. All these increases in responsibilities or the pressure that you might feel is more psychological because this is a close to heart transit. On a good day, you can feel that you're learning patience. On a bad day, life can feel a little bit out of control. You'll have to try to create some rules of life, rules of living. There will be changes in the rules of living in some ways. But you would be doing your best work when it comes to emotional foundations, when it comes to your own fulfillment, when it comes to family, children, home, kitchen, and it will show up in your outer life. The stable core that you're creating, solid core that you're creating, will take you to the next level in your outer life. It's almost like the foundation of the house is being strengthened so a higher building can be made on top of it in some ways. You have a stellium of planets. Stellium means more than 4 planets right now in this house. So you would already be experiencing that. The first square of Saturn Uranus is happening today when I'm recording this on 17th. It is not a one-day event. These are outer planets, so they color the whole year. And this aspect is happening first time now in February when we are seeding this new way of being emotionally, new way of being in our core, new way of being in our personal relationships. And you might have seen a preview of that around February to May 2020 last year. Now we are living it and we are learning to live it and we are learning to live in a different way. So the first aspect now in February, second in June, and the final aspect, which is supposed to be the result, the outcome, is happening on 24th of December 2021. Right now, we just had a new moon in this area. So you might already be making some improvements physically to your home, place of living. You might be cleaning home, organizing, decluttering. And at the same time, you might be looking at your foundations. Are they secured? Is this the place you want to live? Is this the family structure you need? What do you need to make your foundations more strong? How they can hold you up, prop you more. You might be reconnecting with family, with your roots in some ways. You might be setting up some ground rules for future. There might be some past that you might be reviewing, especially family past, ancestral past. There's an awareness that is created on where we came and where we are going to, and why that's happening in between when these transits happen. These are very psychological in nature. So we analyze our own source of pride, our own source of belonging, our own roots, home leadership, ego confrontation, trust. All these things that make us who we are in the outer world, the nourishment of the inner foundations which support your outer growth, they are getting reviewed right now. Mercury is retrograde in that area of your life, so you might be going back and forth in your mind, in your thought process right now as well. What is the place of living? how do I fulfill my emotional needs? Are my family bonds strong? Are these the bonds that I want? There might be some physical repairs in real estate matters which might be happening. You might be improving your relationships in some way. You might be reviewing your relationships, your living situations. Are there small snags which are bringing up fundamental issues? How do you fill your cup? How do you feel safe? How do you feel fulfilled? Are you being true to you and to your roots and who you wanted to become? The fundamentals of life, the basis of life is boosted by deeper introspection right now, through discussion, through internal navigation. You might be physically decorating home or talking to parents, reconnecting with them. Is your home family structure, is it fueling you? Do you need to shake things up when it comes to your personal life in some way and detox the home environment so it fulfills you? You might have already done a lot of these changes during Mercury retrograde in the last couple of weeks. You might be revisiting your parenting style, revisiting the positive and negative of what is coming through from how your parents brought you up and how that's affecting your parenting style. You might be revisiting the positive and negatives of your ancestral roots. You might be reconnecting with your own stable core, with your pillars, with your family, and you will be making peace with them. The outcome of this is to find the place we call home. Find the place that makes you feel whole in some ways. Find the place that nourishes you, that makes you feel full. Saturn over here squares either your Scorpio sun or Scorpio moon or your Scorpio ascendant. When that happens, we are physically challenged in our health in some ways, because the nourishment is not just through emotions, the nourishment of the food comes into question. Um, why are we eating what we're eating, the emotional reasons behind the diet, the foundations of how we're treating our body, they come up in question. And we tend to shift things. You could have experienced this back in 2013 and 2014 as well, because when Saturn came in Scorpio at that time, physically, this might feel very similar in nature. Physically, it might feel, especially when it comes to health habits, Saturn visiting our ascendant feels very similar, but this is the next chapter of growth here. So you could look back to the period, it specifically started from October of 2012 and lasted to December of 2014. This year could be a little bit of a mirror image of 2013. You could look back to 2013, some lessons, some things that you did which helped you physically, which helped you in your health, and bring back that now. As a parent, our nurturing parent, Scorpios, as a sign, our parents tend to, at least the one that is supposed to be normally nourishing parent, a mother figure, is normally a little bit emotionally detached or intellectual in nature. It's not positive or negative. It doesn't mean that necessarily the childhood is disrupted, but we do tend to carry the family karma more than the rest of the signs. We tend to carry the ancestral karma much, much more and in a much, much heavier way as compared to the rest of the signs. Because of the way we are brought up and the way we perceive the things that are happening during our growth period, during our period of being brought up. And a lot of those past memories will come back up. This is the house of womb to tomb. So, from the first 3 years of birth to how we want to die, this is the house. So, in this house, we find that life comes full circle. We go back to, sometimes people actually reconcile with the past in some ways. They start remembering, especially if you go through therapy during this time, we start relating to the time or remembering our prenatal infancy in the first 3 years of the year, which is what this house stands for, we start remembering some of the experiences from that. At the very least, the childhood memories come back somehow to resolve the unresolved with our family. Because there is something you need to release from that time to move forward. Especially the boundaries that we have with other people. Because when Saturn is here, it teaches us how to nurture from a place of strength. How to nurture from a place of strength and not insecurity, uh, not from obligatory. Even though it is karma, we have to nurture from a place of strength, and we have to learn from nurturing from a place of strength without losing ourselves, without losing our boundaries in some ways. As I said, apart from the emotional foundations, this is where sometimes home related work is best done, which means that if you're working on something, on a project, or you're working on some visionary project of yours, it is best done from home in some ways. Working from home at any job could benefit you enormously at this time. Or a place that you can call home. If the home becomes heavy, a place that brings you nurturing, it brings you comfort, it brings you ease. It could be a corner in a coffee shop, it could be a hotel, it could be a cruise ship, it could be anything that brings you that comfort of mind, that brings you closer to you. That's where you will produce your best work during this transit. But on a mundane fashion, daycare worker, teacher, coach, interior design, gardening, lawn care, real estate business, anything related to housing could be an excellent lucrative opportunity for you during these transits in 2021. You would, in fact, find that if you take on investment into a green city project, home project, creative gardening, socially responsible building, um, it can be extremely lucrative. If you're building up a property, having a lot of electronics, gadgets, Wi-Fi, in some way that is going to help you. It's the whole model of, in some ways, we are in a time period when that is happening naturally as well. Working from home, but using a lot of technology while doing that. And home property needs to be in some way innovative. The building architecture or the way we have created the whole space. There's normally office is created at home, not just for the the current time, but for a longer period of time, because that gives us the comfort to be, we might prefer that in some ways. There could be some sudden relocation that can come up. You might decide to fly the old security zone, because this is a phase of growth. This is a phase of flying from the nest, essentially. At the same time, the boundaries in how you parent, they would be recreated. The parent child roles are made clear. If you are a parent, those boundaries with your children, and you become that responsible parent in some way. So your role becomes both to teach your child, as well as to some extent sometimes learn from them as well. We need to be a little bit careful when Saturn is here, because sometimes when Saturn is transiting over here, we can get a little bit more strict, which is within healthy boundaries is fine, but we can get a little bit pushy sometimes as a parent when this happens. So learning the balance, the boundary, the objectiveness, that parenting style needs to happen. Similarly, there will be your own parent. The relationship with your own parent will go through a big amount of change. There will be healing of some old pain of your own childhood. You will create possibly a house that you need to operate in the best way, like a dream home. There will be expansion of consciousness, illumination as it called, because we move from, in some ways, human to divine state here. We learn what's immortal about us. As I said, this is the house of womb to tomb. What do we want to leave behind? What is our legacy? How we want to die? What is it that as values we want to leave behind to our children? What is, as a society, we want to leave behind? And in some ways, we analyze the legacy of our ancestors as well. Is there something as a legacy that has been passed to you from your family? It could be a physical home, it could be an actual talent that has been passed on to you. And it has been hidden in the components of your own psyche because of fear, because of other reasons. And in some ways, it's your choice, but self analysis or therapy to somehow realize these patterns can enormously benefit to us. This is the time for new foundations. You will create prosperous new foundations with the process. This is going to be a process that is going to help you grow in material ways in your life. Because in some ways, professionally as well, you would be moving away from your comfort zone. This is a threshold that moves you towards the next level of maturity in everything in your life, in your relationships, in your home, in your family, in your place of living, in your professional capacity, who you're known as to the world. You'll be very fascinated with your roots, trying to, figure out what are the psychological or even physiological patterns that you exhibit, which are probably inherited in some ways. It's a process. Sometimes we reconcile with a family. We reconcile even with the legacy, unresolved conflicts that the family dynamics has given us. And it is sometimes very deep embedded in the psyche. It's not about blame game, it's about understanding those patterns. It's about understanding those unconscious things that have been playing on us, which don't let us sometimes progress at the speed we want to go for. So, it's very simple in some ways. Sometimes we come from a family which did not come from a good background, or we were the only person in the family who did well, or our family was not very well off as we were growing up. And when you achieve some amount of success, there's a guilt factor sometimes that comes with it, and that guilt factor sometimes does not let you move to the next level. In some ways, we start sometimes self-sabotaging ourselves because our parents were our ideal, or our family was an ideal, and in some ways we feel guilty or not comfortable surpassing that in some ways. So there is an atonement or reconciliation with what was the karma of our family, what was the karma of your parents, what was the karma of the rest of your family is their karma, and you have a different life. You have a separation of karma here. There's a creative separation from family karma. And we take the good, but in some ways we have to release. It doesn't mean that we don't own what we came from. We don't own, but we don't carry that forward in our life in some ways. We separate our own identity while accepting that we belong to something different before. And this is not just the family, it could be a comfort zone of a job or a career that you were in before, which used to give you a sense of security, and it is like you're moving away from that now. But the family or the emotional patterns will be very important to be reconciled with, to be dealt with in a positive fashion for you to move forward. After dealing with it, we start differentiating ourselves from our parents. We outgrow that position that we were in. Complex conditions at home so far might have colored your own view about yourself. And the thing is that this is a very important step before Jupiter moves into your house of creativity. Jupiter will be moving in your house of joy from May of 2021, and it will stay there till July. So there's a whole amount of liberation that is coming from it. You're becoming a different person with that, and immediately as you go and hunt for this treasure through the psychological process, which will come through a little bit of pressure, you going out of your comfort zone, figuring out what patterns in the past have been blocking you through reading through talking to your parents, through understanding your family karma, through psychoanalysis or through therapy in some ways, or just self-analysis or meditation with yourself, being in that healing space, when you move forward from that place, you discover your creative talents which were hidden behind all this muck. You find your gold, your treasure, your personal destiny. And then you find the confidence to live it in some ways. Jupiter is extremely potent and positive in Pisces, where it will be there whole of 2022, and it will show a preview to that between May to July. When Jupiter goes over there, we take a risk on life. And in order for you to take a bet on your own talents, taking a chance on yourself, for you to go full out and play life fully, there are some complexes that need to be dealt for you to be able to do that. And first of those, one of the main ones of those, will be to find the creativity, that joy that was lost because of some old patterns, control patterns, compulsion from another person to control your environment or control your destiny in some ways. Or even if you come from a perfect childhood, where we see our parents as perfect, that tends to normally manifest in a very different fashion as well. When we see our parents as perfect, anything that we do wrong or anything that is wrong becomes a flaw in us. So you'll have to somehow either live up or live down one of the parents, which you might have lived up or lived down too much during your childhood. There will be retrieval of some repressed traits, your own intuition that you would find back, some lost creative abilities, which might have been lost. And it's sort of like you'll feel like you're pregnant with something. Like literally in 2013, when Saturn was on my ascendant, and you might have experienced this in a different way, I was literally pregnant in 2013. And this is sort of a next level of that. So it's like you're being pregnant with something that you're about to deliver, but you're so stressed about something, or you don't believe in your ability to do it, that you're just in labor for way too long. And in that moment, I have never shared this with somebody, let alone on a platform. In that moment, I was in labor for close to 2 days at that time. And in that moment, the only thing that I could hear from God was, look into your own eyes. And I did. And this transit of Saturn in our fourth house is like looking into your own eyes and asking yourself, is this all you're made of? Is this all you're made of? Or are you made of more? Do you not have faith in yourself? Do you not have faith in yourself to be able to deliver this? Did you not want this? So there's this looking at yourself in your eye, whatever you are just so pregnant with and not able to deliver due to stress, due to complexes, due to control patterns of the past, your own control patterns, compulsion to control your own environment in some ways. You would find yourself learning to discharge that in some ways, release that by creating a foundation of yourself. And this is self-reliance. This is self-reliance. This is not relying on a perfect parent, not relying on somebody who's in the past told you that I'm ever going to be there for you. This is you doing you in some ways. Even if you are discharging responsibilities to family, even if you're doing things for your family, you are creating your own foundation here. And it's very, very common. And again, in 2013, you might have experienced that. A minor depression sometimes happen. It's not something which is unheard of. I'm being very honest with you. The minor depression over here is to accept your own patterns, to accept that we have to be more to move to the next level, to be able to live what's coming next for us, which is expansive, which is taking a risk on our creative juices, which is to have many, many opportunities to live the life that we were born for. Sometimes we have to go through this nadir, it's called, the bottom of the pit, and we have to dig out the gold from there. Dig out our uniqueness, our personality, the thing that we are made of. We sometimes have to go there and get that up. And during that period, being kind to yourself, accepting that sometimes you're not going to feel so good because you're dealing with a lot. You're dealing with your past, you're dealing with your parents in some ways, you're dealing with your own karma in some ways, which you were born with, you came in this life with. The complexes of the family, as I said, Scorpio as a sign takes on more complexes of the family. We tend to punch ourselves and say that if my father had this, if my mother had this, I would have it too. Subconsciously, that sticks with us. That's why Aquarius sits in our house of home and family. There is need to be detachment from that karma, this complexes of the family, for us to be successful. Feeling guilty about doing better than the family. Extreme sense of lack and limitation driven by guilt because of that. So a new self-image which was born in Saturn in our first house, remembering that from 2013, end of 2012, throughout 2013, just remember who you became in the process of that. Every transit to the angle which is happening right now is a separation from our old self. We feel in some ways separating from our parents here, from their patterns. In some ways, sometimes this is like a rebellion to our parents. We, or our subconscious sometimes deliberately does something which our parents would not approve of. We sometimes want to create the identity so separate from the parents. We would relocate, we would move to, a situation. But externalization of this, everything external that you would see manifesting would be externalization of internal thought process, repressed emotions, unspoken words. This is in terms of actual events, because when Saturn will be exactly on your IC, on your Nadir, on your point of fourth house, cusp, at that time you will see an actual event turn out, and it could go back and forth over your cusp, fourth house cusp. It will go between 7 degree to 13 degree this year. So if and when it passes, which will happen at some point either in this year or next year, you'll have to know what is your fourth house cusp for that. This year is 7 degree to 13 degree, and next year is 13 degree onwards, essentially. So at that point, you will find an event that happens which physically separates you from your past. It could be a relocation, a major relocation. It could be an inheritance that comes. Unfortunately, sometimes it comes with the loss of parent. Sometimes it comes with the birth of a child. Family reconciliation. Creating a home of our fantasies, what we really wanted. And one of the most important outcomes I've seen turn out of this transit, which I'm looking forward to, is release of unrealized talent and potential. Because there is a birth of a new life goal that happens. It's threshold of our life, and a new life goal is born when this happens. You would no more want to identify with the old base. It's almost like we don't belong there anymore. This is a cardinal house. We initiate exploration here. And Jupiter is here. Jupiter is the great benefic. It expands our foundation. It expands our emotional foundation. It creates a place of security. It creates a place of safety. It creates long-term positive changes in home, family. Some real estate matters, they get settled. Investment in real estates pay off. Expansion is there in family. Harmony and peace returns with loved ones. We learn to bring home the positivity that the home deserves. There's encouragement, there's more boldness, there's perseverance which comes with these aspects. There's a maturation and discovery of either a gift from family lineage or our own creativity that was hidden, Or if we were holding charge of some family trait or a family complex that we were ignoring so far, it was deeply entrenched in us and it was defining us. We separate from that trait. We separate from family but belong, but don't ignore the fact that that's where we came from. This is not the only thing, as I said, this is a critical step of development. You're creating a new foundation from ground up over here. You'll be urged to let go of any old security blankets that have been holding you back. It's the house of endings. You will search for something that is different, that is more progressive, that is more you, that is more closer to who you want to become. This is the house of freedom from the past. And this is the house of life. What is your legacy? What gives your life meaning? What sets you apart? What's your impact on future? And Saturn here will give you discipline to do something meaningful with your talents and become the teacher of your art, of your knowledge, unique talents, responsibilities. What are you creating? What are you creating? It's like, then when Saturn is here, we get this nagging feeling. I gotta create something which is meaningful. I want to be of value. Structure of some tangible creative outcome, responsibility in some ways. It's like the next set of creative threshold that we're reaching. It makes us something who's who does not hold our laughter back, who does not hold our emotions back, who doesn't hold the talent back because they think it's not meaningful to the society. So for that, you will be breaking away from the past. You will try to build new foundation on which that beautiful place, that beautiful legacy can be created. You'll repair certain foundations. So that doesn't fall apart when something bigger is put on top of it. You'll adapt emotionally to change. The skills for who you are becoming. You'll be acquiring those skills through working from home, needing open space, progressive community where you can discuss all these new innovative ideas, where people don't have the same restrictions on family structure and way of living. You want more freedom in the way you want to live, to be who you are becoming. You'll be collecting resources that are needed for your house, for your emotional base, which are compatible with who you're becoming, the family structure and the place of living, which is more compatible with who you're becoming. Uranus is also playing a big role here. Uranus is sitting in your house of partnerships, in your house of long-term relationships, marriage partner. So in order for you to move forward, there might be some unconventional structure of relationship that needs to exist as well. So if you had in an existing partnership, in an existing relationship, there would be a different dynamics that will come about with your partner. This is very exciting. It is changing. It can add a little bit of more volatility in a house that we are not used to. Scorpios have Taurus in their seventh house, which is a stable house. So traditionally, Scorpios prefer a stable, traditional, lucrative, good with money kind of a partner. But with Uranus coming over here, our taste in partner changes. What we expect out of relationships changes. We want more space. We want more freedom. We want to have our own identity away from being a partner. We sometimes attract unreliable partners as well. But you change through other people. You're seeking original. You're seeking dynamism. You're seeking inventive. So either the existing relationship dynamics changes, or the new person who comes in your life, it changes you. They somehow teach you things about yourself. They add some magic to your life. They add some excitement to your life. Some unconventional relationship patterns develop. And this is also true in our committed business partnerships. Some very unique and brilliant people come in partnership with us. Business partners would be different in some ways. But don't expect a lot of reliability. They are the creative sorts, brilliant sorts, which come with a wave and they change you. So hold the relationships a bit more lightly. your complexes or the way you're dealing with your own inner self requires you a bit of space of your own. It requires a little bit of seclusion as well, if I may say. Somebody who's always hanging out is something that you probably don't need at this point in time. So, the structure of your partnership, business, personal, the way you handle your clients, the kind of clients you get, the kind of contracts you are in, they are desired with more freedom. They're desired with more ahead of the time structures, new ideas, new insights, new breakthroughs need to come in some ways by being with those people. It's more intellectual, it's more freedom, it's more free in some ways. It's in fact, sometimes our partner's life goes through enormous amount of changes when Uranus is transiting 7th house. And Uranus is here till 2026, so it will depend on when it comes on your exact degrees. Just like Saturn, Uranus this year will be going between 7 degree to 13 degree. So these patterns will bring about, I think, more visible changes for if you're a Scorpio sun born around last week of October and first week of November, or Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising, 7 degree to 13 degrees. So in the first two decans, the first 20 degrees of Scorpio would experience the change throughout this year. If you have planets around 23 degree of Scorpio, which is around 15th of November born, you might have already experienced a shift or a change or a new thing which is coming about in your home. The change might already be in process right now. And more changes will come in 2022 when Uranus and Saturn come on your exact degrees. But psychologically, because Saturn and Uranus is playing out throughout this year, you all are going to feel this. The partnership and marriages need to be more open in some ways. Similarly, the contracts that you are in, they need to be more open-ended. The audience, the clients that you deal with, the kind of advice you give people, the consulting that you offer, it needs to be more state of the art. It needs to be in the field of finance, astrology, or some sort of technical knowledge which is not yet in place. The structure of your contract might be very unprecedented. It's possible that the partner that you have, he or she may not be physically there where you are. There would be more open exchange, but it's possible that technology might play a big role in the way you handle clients, in the way you handle long-term partnership, which is happening for all of us. But this is a more longer-term transit for you in some ways, and it's something that you would seek, that you would need. You would need that space. You would need that change. You would need that distance in some ways. And the people who would come in your commitment life, in your life as a one-on-one relationship, people who would live with you, would change you a lot. This is also what we contribute to others. So your own contribution to society would be brilliant in nature. New ideas, insights, breakthrough. People haven't heard of those things ever before. Ahead of the time ideas. Scorpios are going to come back with those things. You, by learning of your own, by going through your own psychological complexes, can completely shift the equation for another person. But one thing, and I spoke about it in the February video as well, is that when you have so much of planets in the 4th house, it can become too much in feelings. We can become so much in feelings. It can get a little bit, heavy. So we got to balance this out during the course of the year. You got to balance this out, especially now. How do you balance that out? By going to your 10th house of profession and work. So we need to go out in the world and be who we need to be. Scorpios, we have Leo in our house of work. Ambitious, being the boss, being the center of it all, being this person who's very capable of taking and holding an executive position, both in our home life as well as in our external life. We like doing things that put us in the center stage. So a lot of energy while it's going into your own psychology and home, you need to balance that out on the other side. in the professional sector, in the world outside. So while you excel in your home life, you could take up some external, which puts you in a next level of growth in your career or in your society contribution, like environmental issues, dealing with weather conditions, social humanitarian causes, or professionally in finance, in in real estate, in construction, in history, in archaeology, in preservation, in green and ESG related topics. Too much energy in personal sector, our emotions can get very much sicked out. So get out, work the industry, work the society. Don't lose perspective when that's happening. Our role as a nurturer, as a parent, as a caretaker, as a feminine role, as a home decorator, as a cook, as a chef, as a daycare, as a realtor, as a counselor, as a whatever you're acting to your family right now, it can consume all of us. But you have to feed yourself in some ways. Emotional growth will come both from taking care of yourself. Yes, definitely family traditions, hiding out at home as well to some extent. But you have to periodically give yourself the other side. And the other side will make you feel healed as well. Because you will see how solidifying your foundation and working on your core is playing out in real life, is playing out in the outside world. You would see it work out. You would see that you would be able to do way more than you did. You will be able to contribute way more than you did compared to any time before in your life. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to feeling whole. I'm looking forward for us to contribute our legacy. I'm looking forward to moving to the joyous part that Jupiter is going to get us to once we get our, our foundations right. We get the atonement that we need from the past. And with that, we move to a very joyous part of our life together. I'm looking forward to doing that with you. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video now.